time. All right, video essay is released. That's the real headline here. We've got boom. So there's still a question of how to market this effectively. I think what I'm going to do for the next week or so is to just message people with the stuff, like with the actual video, and just reach out. There's still some friends I need to reach out to. There's still creators, obviously. I have to reach out to Ivan. We have to consider who else to reach out to that we know of, and then we need to look for people to reach out to. That might be something we do today once we're done the main stuff I wanted to do. We've got a short up, Hallucination. Not the best short still, but this is the best I've got. Yeah. Hopefully that helps us out a little bit. Hopefully people find it cool. And then obviously I'll just keep, yo! What's good in OK Life? Mega Consume, first to claim this land. It's mine now. Absolutely. That's how it works. You got it. I was just saying that the video essay is out. We got a video essay. We got a short that points back to it. And we have to... I decided I'm not going to do Google Ads, so I think this is going to be grassroots completely. So I have to figure out how to effectively post this and spread it. I name it Richson Stan. Nice. I see what you did there. It's very nice. Stanistan. Our flag will be green, brown, and blue. Green, brown, and blue. Wonder if those are colors that I usually wear. I guess gray would have to be one. But I like them. I like the colors. Okay. So, unfortunately, even though I want to like celebrate this video essay, I'm kind of over this video essay. You know, it's been months now. I'm ready for the next stuff. I'm ready for the next thing. So I wanted to continue with this conversation yesterday and actually figure out who I should be looking into next. So, can I get to the bottom right, down right? Ooh, look at that. That's pretty nice. Yo, Energy Dompter, what's good? How's it going? Hello, hello. All right, so there was this idea of Dewey. The thing I'm concerned about Dewey, my only concern with Dewey is that his book came out so long ago that I would imagine that someone has iterated on that topic, especially integrating in the new science that we've learned in the past 100 years. Okay, so that's why Dewey might not be the first thing here. Now we got Mark Johnson, The Body and the Mind, Philosophy and the Flesh. Oh, we know George Lakoff. I think we've heard that name before. When did this come out here? 87? Geez, that's also a long time ago. What do we have here? Can we get a description of any kind? I don't want to see a review. Do we have a... Okay, what are human beings like? How is knowledge possible? What is truth? Okay. In addressing them, philosophers have made certain fundamental assumptions that we can know our own minds by introspection, that most of our thinking about the world is literal, and that reason is disembodied and universal. We've got a typo. That are now called into question by well-established research of cognitive science. It has been shown empirically that most thought is unconscious. We have no direct conscious access to the mechanisms of thought and language. Our ideas go by too quickly and at too deep a level for us to observe them in any simple way. Abstract concepts are mostly metaphorical. Much of the subject matter of philosophy, such as the nature of time, morality, causation, The mind and the self relies heavily on basic metaphors derived from bodily experience. That is true. We've seen this a ton. Okay, that's why this is where we've seen Lakoff. Lakoff is in the embodied space for sure. Why are we getting Mark Johnson, though? Is this Johnson? Embodied mind? Yeah. What is literal in our reasoning about such concepts is minimal and conceptually impoverished. All the richness comes from metaphor. Right. Okay. You might want to look into the research of E.O. Wilson because he discussed behavior from a naturalistic perspective. E.O. Wilson. All right. Pretty recent. What does E.O. Wilson say about behavior? Human behavior is heavily influenced by evolutionary history, right? He proposed that social traits like altruism, aggression, tribalism, and mate selection have genetic underpinnings that were naturally selected to help our ancestors survive and reproduce. That's all good. His perspective on behavior centers around several core ideas. Famously argued that human social behavior is not a blank slate. While he believed a vast majority of behavior is shaped by culture and environment, he posited that our genes exert a powerful leash on what we do. So I'm curious if he's worked with Sapolsky, or if Sapolsky's leveraged Wilson, because this is the stuff that Sapolsky talks about in the book Behave. He highlighted that humans possess an instinctual urge to belong to groups. This drive for in-group loyalty fosters our capacity for immense cooperation and altruism. So we had that whole arc where we were talking about the in-group versus the out-group. In his later work, The Social Conquest of Earth, Wilson famously shifted his focus toward group selection. He argued that natural selection doesn't just act on the individual, but on competing groups. Groups containing altruistic and cooperative individuals outcompete. Okay, so we would want to find E.O. Wilson books within the topic of specifically part 1. It would be, we don't have anything here, but I could say E.O. Wilson for, what was it? Social and group selection, evolutionary selection. For example, in out-group behavior, etc. Unlike gene-centered evolution theorists, he argues natural selection selects for groups as wholes, not only genes. Right, and we got that with the Baldwin effect. Was that his book? Who talked about the Baldwin effect? Who's in our? Nah, it probably isn't his book, but we've got a. Okay. Oh, that. You know what? Before I do that, maybe I should just go to here and point out that we also have the video essay as the script. If you want to read the script, you've got it in this nice form on Substack with the references. So when would this have been? This is chapter 10, the Baldwin effect, G.G. Simpson. So this is not the same guy. 1953. Okay. Question is, does E.O. Wilson leverage the Baldwin effect? Out of curiosity. Yes, frequently leveraged the concept of the Baldwin effect. He integrated it into his foundational work on gene culture coevolution to explain how human learning and cultural transmission actively guide biological evolution. All right. So I wouldn't make this like one of our primary things we have to read right now, just because I think we have it. We have a lot of this. Species whose members can take care of each other can resist dangers from the environment and other species. Absolutely, really important. Yep. I mean, we've been on that wave. I think that's a huge thing to keep in mind, especially when we're talking about how we end up with the cultures that we arrive with. So this is all part of that. In my mind, this is all part of this neo-pragmatist idea, where when we're talking, we're not accessing some fundamental nature of the universe. Like we've developed this way of speaking and communicating to each other over a long period of time, and our language is not the same thing as the many other languages that humans use. And you know, there's a lot going on here. And languages don't just easily port to one to the other. We know that translation is often a difficult topic or a difficult exercise, and a lot of concepts that exist in certain languages cannot be easily translated. And like, why would that be if you could just frame things using language? And it just points out how pragmatic language actually is. Okay, so I want to grab this outline, and I'm going to throw it in here eventually. But let's continue on this. When was this book? 2017. Okay. Collection of essays arguing that human cognition, meaning, and reason are fundamentally grounded in our physical bodies and sensory motor experiences, challenging traditional views that separate mind from body. Okay, as for books that I need to read like right away, thinking that Mark Johnson's book perhaps isn't as necessary, given both that it resonates and overlaps quite nicely with the script I included here, and also because I've read stuff like the Embodied Cognition Handbook and other similar pieces. So that stuff does not sound too new in my mind right now. Like, I don't want to just go on to another embodied cognition arc. Like, we need to figure out if anyone's on the cutting edge here. Like, who's now going to leverage the embodied cognition stuff to make a specific philosophical way of speaking about things. And what might they be also leveraging that we aren't leveraging? All right, Neo-Pragmatism and Neurophilosophical Manifesto. This might be cool. What do we have here? This is a PDF. Is it a large PDF, or could I just down this thing when I have the time? Yeah, this isn't that large. Oh, this is real small. I might read this tonight. Either that, or I just download it right now and I throw it into ChatGPT and I see what's going on here. Okay. Can you summarize what's going on here? It's probably going to be similar to the neo-pragmatism description that we got. Related neuropragmatism essays. This is the explicit version of the project. So this is the 2013 philosophy by Solomozzi and John Shook, arguing for neo-pragmatism, a version of pragmatism updated by neuroscience, cognitive science, embodied cognition, and evolutionary biology. The core idea is that mind is not best understood as a detached inner theater, a computer-like representation system, or something located only inside the head. Instead, cognition is something organisms do in ongoing interaction with their bodies, environments, tools, habits, and social worlds. Right. So the embodied cognition people like to highlight the doing as something that is not only embodied, but with an environment. So doing things in the environment, and then certainly the perspective we've taken recently is to ground all of the discussion of what we're doing as being some sort of regulation. It has to be under this topic of regulation. So we might be interacting with the environment And we could describe that in an extended cognition way still, but it could still be for the sake of regulation. And that's the nice thing about active inference. Like it allows you to get further extended than the body. The authors want to collect classical American pragmatists, connect them to contemporary neuroscience. Their main claims are roughly: mind is for action, cognition evolved to help organisms survive, adapt, coordinate behavior, and solve practical problems. And then the thing I try to push here is that when we say action, it's not necessarily action like me doing something with my body. Like we can imagine that certain activity in the brain and the body could be actions, right? It could be releasing some molecules, or it could be raising our blood pressure or something like that. Like that's an action that a part of the body is taking for the sake of something, for the sake of survival or regulation. And then thinking is yet another action. Like it's not that we're thinking in order to act. It's like the thinking itself is the action for the sake of something coming down the pipeline. It is about coping with situations. Okay. Cognition is embodied and embedded. So this is stuff that is also hitting home. And I say that almost in like a negative way, where like we wouldn't want to read into this too far because we're already here. They reject the Cartesian style philosophy of mind. Knowledge is experimental problem solving. Absolutely. This is a huge deal. Truth and knowledge are not framed as static correspondence with a fixed external world. Instead, knowledge is tested through practical success, inquiry, and social practices, especially science. That might be worth, it might still be worth reading this, honestly, just to get someone else's wording on these topics, just so that maybe if I'm doing something really silly. Yo, cool dude Arya. How's it going? Hey, what is up? We are chilling. Long time no see. And yeah, if you haven't heard recently, I've been working on a video essay for a couple months, and it's now up. I should just keep saying this throughout the stream. Just released it today. It's a chonky boy, but it does what it says it does. It explains perception, which is somewhat of a tall task. All right, I should just open it, keep it here, so that we can always switch over it. Have my eyes closed. Look at that. Beautiful. I posted on just video essays, which is pretty small, but no bites. No bites so far. No bites on the comments here. So we gotta do some more outreach. I tuned in during one of your interview streams. Ooh. One of my interview streams. Was it the one where I was getting interviewed by this chat's very own An OK Life? And if so, how do you think I did? I was trying real hard there. Not quite sure. It was like a few days ago. Yep. It was, I think, Saturday. Yeah, that was the very first time I've actually done an interview. Very first time I had done any type of collab on stream. So it was a nice learning experience for me. It was a nice way to breach a wall that I had been inside. I am now open to doing that type of thing and more comfortable with it. I just said hi, stayed for a bit, and then left. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the comments as much as I usually do on stream, just because I was so focused trying to stay on. I graduated, so that's good. Hell yeah, congrats. Congrats on graduating. Was this college, high school? What was the graduation? Grad school? Regardless, that's pretty exciting. It means new stuff's coming down the pipeline. Okay, so then these guys also argue that science and the humanities should not be enemies. A major target is the idea associated with Sellers and later neurophilosophy. that there is a conflict between the scientific image of humans and the manifest of humanistic image. They argue that this conflict is partly caused by a bad conception of experience in science. For them, science is itself a human, cultural, practical activity, continuous with ordinary life. Oh man, these guys are there. The paper's manifest. Okay, so this is all stuff that I would like, actually. So, one on... Oh, high school, haha, although I'm working on a new grad level idea. Ooh. Very cool. Very cool. One on black holes, pretty interesting. Yeah, that's jumping pretty ahead. I feel like I wasn't having any good thoughts when I graduated high school. So that's pretty cool. Definitely keep at it. Keep learning. You'll be ahead of the curve. Ahead of the curve? Curve? It's one of those. Okay, let's actually put these in their own separate bullets. Uni calls having trouble deciding. Oh, are you saying that you haven't decided on which uni to go to? Or you're now deciding your path within uni? Okay, cool. Interesting. Is it like between only a few, or is it really going to be dependent on what you end up working on? By any chance, have you read Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago? I have not. And I know that JP recommends that. I need to read that at some point in my life, for sure. I have 8 options across the world. Wow. Waiting for some from Australia. Man, that sounds pretty high end here. They got to be fighting over it. It is. Hell yeah. Well, good luck. Hopefully one of the favorites takes the cake. Okay, here we go. I want to say were we always on medium intelligence? Could we do high intelligence? Is it just based on how long it takes? All right. For nope, that's the wrong one. For neuropragmatism, this stuff sounds almost exactly the way that I talk. Exactly like the way I talk. The way I talk about these topics. Who is taking neuropragmatism and providing the most contemporary or updated or comprehensive view more recently than this manifesto? So that would be a maybe here. Who's next here? Enactivism for e-cognition. As I mentioned, I have already hit the enactivism for e-cognition space pretty hard, so I'd rather not jump back in yet. I should say same thing with predictive processing. I think I'm ready to move on from that and try to find who's actually taking that and coming up with some of the more interesting contemporary philosophical implications, especially regarding practical utility. For example, I felt like Anil Seth's Being You did a nice job of giving us an intuitive set of implications for these topics. I'm also reading The Self-Evidencing Agent right now, and I expect that to similarly provide some interesting contemporary philosophical implications. And that book came out in 2026, so I hope that's actually pretty interesting stuff. But other than that, I think I'm done there. Brandom as a foil. I've already spent a lot of time reading Brandom as well, or at least I've read A Spirit of Trust and Articulating Reasons, which I think gives me a decent view of the type of story he tells. And while that view has been profoundly influential for how I now understand a lot of these topics, and one of the reasons why I wanted to dive into all the grounded neuroscientific topics in the first place, I think I'm ready to find something that is now incorporating all of the above in a more I want to say something like mature, but that's a little, in a more quote unquote mature trajectory here. All right, who is next? Okay, that was it. That's all it gave me. So then with all that feedback in mind, is there anyone that is really giving what I'm looking for here? That cutting edge view that's taking all of this into account? Was this the last time that it actually gave suggestions? I felt like there was... Oh, here. Yeah, it was one of these guys. Where the most modern version of the view lives. So we got neuropragmatism, we've got embodied meaning and values. That, but what about this guy? The radical inactive okay, they were the inactive cognition people. Okay. Okay. Okay, anyway, enough about me. What are we looking at here? So we've spent a couple months working on this video essay, and that involved us to really organize a lot of the stuff that I've been learning for the past couple of years into a nice trajectory that explains how we perceive the world and what that might mean. And so now we get to take all this and we get to come up with what are the implications of that. And really, for the sake of this channel, we want to know the practical implications. So I'm asking these types of questions about, like, where can we go next? It has my script, so it knows what we know from the video essay. I'm playing coy right now. I'm giving it just this stuff, but then we got to give it the outline of what I expect the document to hold. Now we have that, we have a previous draft of the document, but I want to iterate on that now that we have a more effective way of explaining the stuff I'd like to explain, such as, like, how we perceive the world and how that affects what we might be able to do in the world, how we can think about things. So it really makes clear that, like, framings, the way that we can conceptualize something, or the way that we frame a situation or frame whatever interface we have for the world, is significant in how it affects what we end up experiencing. So having a certain concept of freedom can be really beneficial for us. So now the discussion is like, okay, what might be the best conceptualizations that would help us out? And of course, following science would be a good answer. And that's actually what part 2 is going to be. It's just, here's a lot of the science that helps us out. But then we could also now in part 2, we could actually spend more time talking about what, you know, religions or other philosophies say about certain situations or how to deal with certain things. Because at the end of the day, they're just conceptualizations. And so these are just other inputs that we could leverage in order for us to experience the world in a way that might benefit us. So that's kind of the whole deal here. Only neuropragmatism is all-encompassing. That might be the case. Neuropragmatism looks quite elegant here. We did a little summarization of the manifesto. And I'm just curious, is there anyone newer that's like building on this stuff? Because the manifesto wasn't super long. But it seems pretty nice. I have a question related to your neo-pragmatic linguistic philosophy. Absolutely, let it rip. I'm all ears. Sorry if I asked this before, but do you have a perspective on the analytic-synthetic distinction? I have no idea what it is. What is the analytic-synthetic distinction? Is a foundational concept in philosophy and logic. Analytic statements are true purely by definition, whereas synthetic statements provide new information about the world that must be verified through observation. Okay. What's there to say about this distinction? So once again, or I should say, when we're talking about analytic versus synthetic, these are ways we can make sense of like statements that we talk about. But we shouldn't discount, like, if we were to really think about practically what's happening when someone communicates even an analytic statement. This isn't necessarily not providing any new information that might be affecting what you believe to be true and affecting how you understand the truth of this very statement. Like, you know, this might prompt you to think about something that makes you think and make a couple other hypotheses or theories that then like loop back to justify how this might be true. Like, I know that sounds really odd, but we have to talk about this idea of like truth in a different way here. What a day, huh? Was it that type of day? Some people, like for example, Klein rejected. Well, yeah, I'm curious what they would reject. What is there to reject about the primary criticism is that this divide is fundamentally untenable and lacks clear empirical boundaries. Okay. I mean, that sounds fine. Like, once again, like if we are talking about some form of truth as being like some fundamental way of classifying these true facts, which are just innate things about the world, then I would say that we are probably not having the right discussion. But if we're talking about ways in which we can make sense of certain statements that we say, and we can differentiate between things like analytic truths and synthetic truths, and then also keep in mind that maybe there's some ambiguities in some of these, then, you know, that might be also beneficial. Circular definitions. To explain what makes a statement analytic, true by meaning, philosophers often appeal to the idea of synonym, words meaning the same thing, but you can't define synonym without appealing to necessity. Yeah, so I think he's got a point here. The point would be that there's always something that, there's always some implication or some presupposition that's underlying any of these statements, and we can't act as if like a statement is just by itself all-encompassing. Like all the meaning is just there, and therefore, you know, this thing is true. Like we're just discounting all that, you know, is providing the meaning to this, which is you. You're the one that actually takes those symbols and actually finds them meaningful. And then we could have a discussion about how we ought to talk about these symbols that we understand ourselves to be finding meaningful, but how do we treat something like the truth of that? And that's where we can get into some hot water if there's ambiguous statements or ambiguous situations. Our beliefs do not face the tribunal of experience as isolated individual sentences. Instead, they form a vast interconnected web of belief. A change in one part of our language or scientific understanding can ripple through the web. So all this stuff that he's saying, like, this is great. The meaning of a sentence relies on how it connects to real-world experience. Absolutely. Klein contended that every truth is a mix of linguistic convention and empirical fact, making a hard line between the two impossible to draw. Right, but we just have to be clear about when we're talking about empirical fact here. It's really grounded in, there is a priority actually in the subjective here. So semantics is actually grounded in the subjective. No statement is completely immune to revision. Absolutely. The way that we understand even certain statements, like statements that seem certain, right? Like even this bachelors are unmarried, as I was getting at. You hear someone say that, and now the way that you understand that term is different. You know, imagine you're a kid and you hear your teacher say something, and you're like, ah, that must be a way to say things now. That must be something that reflects some truth. I mean, you're a kid, so you think that it actually needs to be true, just like how you think that your parents are always right. Okay. Cool stuff. Great example in this space. All right, so can we get something new? Can we get some new stuff? Who's at the cutting edge? Who's at the front lines? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Okay, and then we feed it our outline, and I'm going to say something. I actually want to shift the conversation, not from like who I should read, but like, here's all the things I want to do in this channel and in this document. I know it's insane. I know it's a lot of stuff. I want to ask it, like, what would be the way to go about this? Like, what might be the right trajectory? Okay, we got to copy this just in case this thing is shot out on us. There's also a chance that by selecting this high model, it's doing something that it's not telling us it's doing. But I am going to be impatient, and I'm also going to just copy this. We got to make sure it's here. We got it. We got it all. So let's do a little refresh here. Is it doing anything? I can't trust it. If I press send again, nothing? Are we bricked? Stop answering. Okay, maybe if I do a stop answer and then oh, stop thinking. Okay, so it was working. Let's do another send. Oh, but now it's back on medium. Now it's back on high. We'll never know. Daniel N, how's it going? Stantiger, the Mantiger. The Man-Tiger? Mantiger. Is this an actual thing? Man-Tiger. A novel. A young man harbors a supernatural female white tiger within. This is the energy for today. The inequities and betrayals of family life coalesce around and torment this magical being. An explosive act of violence follows, and its mysterious cause is unraveled as events progress toward a heartbreaking revelation. Yikes. Okay, maybe not. Maybe this isn't what we're doing today. Sounds a little more sad than I was going for. Oh, I have a question related to your question. Absolutely. Let it rip. I was wondering the grounding principles, linguistic techniques, and syllogistic goals when formulating a question. Not exactly what I expected, but I like it. Awesome. Oh, we got an answer. Look at this. All right, I'd revise the recommendations pretty strongly. You probably do not need more embodiment 101, more random, or more generic predictive processing exposition. You are looking for the place where neo-pragmatism, neuropragmatism, active inference, social cognition, enculturation, habit, language, and practical consequences converge. My honest answer, there is not yet one dominant great book that fully does this. Dang. The closest current zone is a network of authors rather than a single prophet, but there are very few strong candidates. But there are a few very strong candidates. Not there are very few. The closest explicit neuropragmatist, we got Solomosi. If your question is who is actually carrying neuropragmatism forward after the manifesto, okay. The more recent piece to look at is Neopragmatism, the Cybernetic Revolution, and Feeling at Home in the World. Oh, it's a paper or a book? No, this is looking like a volume from a journal. Do we get it? Oh my gosh, we got it. That's also short. What is happening here? And in recent work, Mark Johnson has argued about a scientifically updated version of John Dewey's pragmatism affords human beings the opportunity to feel at home in the world. This feeling at home, however, is not fully problematized, nor explored, nor resolved by Johnson. Rather, Johnson and his collaborators, Tucker and Skulkin, defend this updated pragmatism within the historical development of the sciences of life and mind from the 20th century to the present day. A central theme in this defense is the affinity pragmatism has with... Okay, wait. A central theme in this defense is the affinity that pragmatism has with neurophenomenology, especially the inactivism seen in 4E cognition. Another theme is the future orientation of pragmatism, especially as it is focused on developments in cybernetics and artificial intelligence. Given Johnson's previous work on expanding the number of E's to 7, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're letting there be 7 E's, and other pragmatist suggestions for more, I argue that neuropragmatism's development of Dewey's conception of experience as organism, environment, transaction. Oh, that's a crazy symbol. Is critical for understanding what Johnson and Tucker call the cybernetic revolution as an enchanting and welcoming future instead of a disenchanting and alienating one. Okay. I'm sold. I'll read it. 2024? Sure. It explicitly treats neuropragmatism as a development of Dewey through current life-mind sciences. All that. The abstract says... Okay. That is probably the most direct answer to your New Day question. He is explicitly trying to say we need a pragmatist naturalism that helps us feel at home in the cybernetic neurotechnological world rather than being alienated by it. So the spirit here might be a little off, though, for what I'm really trying for, but this could be fine. His 2023 article, Neuropragmatic Tools for Neurotechnological Culture Toward a Creatively Democratic Cybernetics of Care, is also directly in this vein. Neopragmatism applied to care, culture, democracy, and technology. That actually is pretty interesting. Not for the document, but for just what, in general, what I'm interested in. I address the problem of caring for our body-mind through neuropragmatism, cybernetics, and Larry Hickman's work on John Dewey and the philosophy of technology. The problems of body-mind health are related to the care crisis. I address this crisis by drawing on Skulkin's conception of viability as the creative tension between stability and precarity. From this, I extend mind-body health to questions of democracy, leading to the proposal of body-mind world as an elaboration of neuropragmatism's evolutionary and ecological conception of experience, as I don't even know what this thing means. Distinction between the merely valued nature as nature and the valuable nature as culture. I conclude with a reimagination of creative democracy as a moral ideal for dealing with the care crisis. I don't know if this is something I'm interested in. I guess I just don't know what some of these things mean. Like, what is the care crisis? Okay, the best Dewey update. Johnson plus Skulkin, but maybe selectively. So, Mind and Nature describes it as developing the most expansive intertwining of Dewey's philosophy with biology and neuroscience to date. This is pretty recent, so actually we might want to do that. This is also good stuff. I should really start an academic journal. This thing is a racket. There's a lot of them. A lot of journals. Oh, do I get the whole thing? Can I get the whole thing? Or do I have to literally go one at a time here? Man, this is a whole deal. Oh, I don't get access to any of these. Oh, man. All right, how do we find this? Come on, come on. This is looking good. Did we get one of them? Oh. Is this it? Oh, we got it. We got the whole thing. What is this now? It is possible for a book to be a wonderful failure. Nope, that's not the way this starts. Oh, this is by Morse. He's responding to this. By that phrase, I do not mean a book which has done a fantastic job failing, but a book which, despite its failures, is a wonderful book. Oh my gosh. While I would not go so far as to call Mind and Nature a failure, nonetheless, the book is not entirely successful in at least 2 of its 3 terms. But it is at the same time a wonderful book, an excellent, aspiring book, which aims to expand our understanding of John Dewey's philosophy and is a joy to read. This is scathing. That's crazy. Okay, we got to keep hold on that. 49 pages, 49 pages. All right, we got it. We got the book. When was this written? 2023? Man, like right when this thing came out, this guy writes a story about how this thing failed. Yeah, that'll be $11 to read this article that may or may not have been a publish or perish project for an academic. Right. Also, you need to pay a monthly subscription. Also, there's a PDF on Google that you can easily get. I might have an article for your journal I've been working on. It's about embezzlement in the philosophy community. Wow. Still in progress. Let me know when it's done. I am very interested in anti-corruption. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay, the one thing that we should be doing, though, as we go through this is to come up with these names. Something like this name, and we got to go Google Scholar. And then we're going to need to keep an eye on these posts. So that's what we just saw, right? I don't know if this is going to be any good, but maybe. Then we've got who else we got here? We got Johnson and Skulkin. Can we get their names? Mark Johnson, Jay Skulkin. Jay Skulkin's easier right now. What are you working on? 2026. The Fast and the Curious, creative improvisation as action-oriented abduction. Oh my gosh. That's what I'm talking about. Do we get it? Oh my gosh. When did this come out? When in 2026? Improvisation, understood as a skillful activity, suggests a tension between the constitutive roles of habit and creativity. Cognitive and phenomenological accounts of skill acquisition point to the importance of developing habitual responses that facilitate fluid performance. Yet, habit formation is associated with repetitive behavior. Seemingly at odds with repetition, spontaneous invention is often regarded as the basis of improvising creatively. So this is a topic that we're interested in, or at least that I've talked about. The puzzle, how habit and creativity relate in skillful improvisation, is resolved by drawing on a view of the brain as an embodied predictive organ, entangled in cultural scaffolding and perpetually engaged in inference. This view is in part rooted in the pragmatist tradition, as is a large body of work on music. Oh my, this is perfect. This is going to be grounded in the type of science that we've been looking at, and also is going to be practical, I'd hope, or I'd imagine, by combining strands of theoretical and empirical research on the embodied, predictive, creative, and musical mind. An account of action-oriented abduction is developed and applied to an illustrative... Is this pronounced illustrative? Vignette. Is it illustrative or illustrative? Which one? Which one? Illustrative.
Illustrative.
The resulting application goes beyond existing accounts to articulate an enriched sense of creative improvisation. Awesome. Wow. What is going on here? Oh, this is huge. And we got pictures. All right, so it's about 22 pages. Okay. Maybe I should go back and start reading articles instead of books. Do I know Tonka Jahari, famous philosopher? I do not. He has a famous phrase, I would never order a whole pizza for myself. It's pronounced I loose stray teeth Ving 8 if you're going for avant-garde stuff. Stan, you know the philosopher Seymour Butts. What is happening here? What is going on here? We look at a couple articles and everything goes crazy in the chat. Okay. Show of hands, which year were you born? Show of hands. Which year were you born? Are you about to start naming them? Like one at a time? Okay. And then we have, who else do we have here? Andy Clark and Skulkin teamed up? Oh my gosh. Oh, and there was another one, right? Birth outcomes of obstetrician or midwife-led intrapartum care. Okay, that's probably not as important here. Preconception, body weight, body mass, and hypertension. Okay, perspective on opioid addiction. Yikes. Integrating microbiome science and evolutionary medicine into animal health and conservation. All right. Creative resilience, flourishing and valuation through social allostasis. That's what we're looking for. This is the type of stuff that we need. And we don't have access? Look at this. We got it all. We're living like kings out here. All right, we articulate a conception of resilience via allostasis and the free energy principle to augment Taleb's conception of anti-fragility. Creative resilience is resilience 3.0. after robustness 1.0 and anti-fragility 2.0, because creative resilience is the deliberate effort to construct ecological niches toward a more caring and thus more viable world for more people. What Dewey preferred, I think, is that preferred, as the moral ideal of creative democracy. Viability is understood as the healthy tension between stability and precarity. This is the viability that the other guy referenced. Awesome. Viability is related to regulatory mechanisms of homeostasis and allostasis, along with discussion of the free energy principle. We situate these processes of the internal milieu within the external milieu. Ecological niche construction and ecological psychological affordances are related to human practices as means of generating culture. Culture is both a product and producer of the process of valuation, which originates in evolution but is further developed by the free energy principle and social allostasis. The collective languishing exacerbated by the COVID pandemic can be ameliorated through creative resilience, so conceived as social allostasis writ large. Man, this is the cutting edge. We've reached the cutting edge. Someone is taking the cutting edge of neuroscience, and they're grounding it in these huge topics. Look at this. We're missing one person though, one name. Johnson. What was it? Mark L. Johnson. What are you working on? Oh no. Could be any of these. Cited by 1,083? Whoa. Okay, this is more. What do we have? From life to mind. What is going on here? What's from life to mind? Source of life. We're previewing like a random chapter right now. On mediatic context of life and death. What is happening? We are born into the world as impulsive, squirming, moving bundles of energy, exploring the perceptions and actions afforded us by our environment, the medium in which we live, move, and have our being. As we grow and develop, these initially somewhat undirected impulses get channeled into specific ways of responding and valuing, which form our selfhood. Out of all of this frenetic movement and surging childhood energy, there eventually emerges meaning, thought, and mind, and as functional processes that make possible our intelligent engagement with our world. Sheets Johnstone, is this a person? Sheets Johnstone argues that the conditions of our animate existence and action are the source of all the structures and processes by which we generate meaning and make sense of our world. Okay. That's fine. That's good. I could check this out if I find it. From Life to Mind. Johnson. This is saying buy this content. Can we find it elsewhere? What is his name? Mark. Does this book exist anywhere? What is this? Does it just exist here? If I hit this, what do we get? That's our preview? Why would he just post a thing just to this one page? Are we saying that there's no other access of that one book? Something's a little sus here. Okay. Nice, thank you, Daniel. Not Nassim Nicholas Taleb, man. Always happy to contribute to empirics. If you're interested in self-help people online, then I would recommend Tim Ferriss and his YouTube channel. Was Tim Ferriss the... Nah, I must be thinking of the other guy. Okay. I'm not going to slander this guy. Taleb is a bit sus. What's wrong with Nassim Taleb in your view, Daniel? He's prone to like overstatements, a bit full of himself, nothing I find too egregious, just sus. Nassim is like the Richard Dawkins of the philosophy world. Oh my gosh. Don't give him an AI. Okay, I have to figure out how to get my grubby little paws on that book. But it looks promising. And maybe it's just to dish over 40 beans. Did he have any other books, though, or any other pieces? No, that was 2024. That's the one that we saw, right, with Skulkin. So he's on a hiatus as far as we are concerned. All right, let's move on here. But I agree with your hesitation. Given what you have already read, you may not need to read it cover to cover. It may give you validation more than novelty. The efficient move would be to read the introduction, conclusion, and any chapters on habit, values, organism, environment, transaction, and inquiry. Johnson and Don Tucker's Out of the Cave is also relevant because it explicitly aims to rethink cognition and behavior through the convergence of biology, psychology, computer science, and philosophy with higher cognition rooted in perception, action, motive control, and feeling. And what is this all about? Out of the Cave. 2021. Okay. Oh, I get it. The Plato's Cave. I got it. All right. We'll keep that there. Do we know about Don Tucker? What's Don Tucker up to? Don M. Tucker. Oh my gosh. What does he have on his head? The evolutionary and organizational bases of active affordance. Oh, we got to figure out what that's about. That's got to be good. Okay, we are not going to get access to this one. The vertebrate brain must balance internally generated predictions with constraints of environmental affordances. Right, this is interfacing where the stimuli hits the organism. That's the balance, or that's like where the balance starts, I guess. The balance actually happens within the organism, or like within our nervous system, but that's the balance. That's where those two things collide. This balance constitutes a fundamental principle of neural organization that underwrites cortical computation. Using the prosomeric model, what does that mean? Is a leading neuroanatomical framework that maps out how the vertebrate brain develops. It divides the embryonic brain into a series of distinct transverse segments called prosomeres, which act as modular genetic building blocks for brain structure. Oh, maybe we need to go into that. I don't know. I don't want to do that anytime soon, though. We show how dorsalizing and ventralizing morphogenetic gradients specify excitatory and inhibitory lineages during development, establishing the functional architecture of active affordance. These developmental asymmetries are elaborated through telencephalic expansion, a bunch of other stuff. We demonstrate that motor control emerges within a sensory predictive architecture due to the alar origin of the telencephalon, and that increasing excitatory inhibitory complementarity within the mammalian neocortex enables selective context sensitive action. This is something we would want to throw into LLM and say like, hey, this is what we understand. Can you take this and like connect it to what we understand so that we don't have to actually like learn a bunch of stuff and try to do all those connections ourselves, because that would just be less efficient for actually trying to figure out what is being said in this. Important, but the kind of guy who says let's be open-minded but not so open-minded that our brains fall out, to someone who they like going to church and reading Kierkegaard, who says, is this beans? Is this beans? What was that regarding? Is this beans? Question. Is this... It is beans. I don't know what it is, but it is beans. All right, at the base of this hierarchy, the hypothalamus integrates homeostatic and allostatic signals to bias the landscape of affordances, shaping the likelihood of action policies. Together, these findings establish active affordance as a developmental and evolutionary framework linking prosomeric neurodevelopment, cortical architecture, subcortical control, and adaptive behavior. Active inference is thereby situated as the mature cortical expression of a conserved biological solution to acting in an uncertain world. So is this just, at the end of the day, more defense of active inference, or is this going to provide something else? That's something that we'd have to look into. What else do we have? I don't think we need to go into these. Oh, implications for improved brain waste clearance. Oh. Sleep. So, brain waste clearance. That is astrocytes. Is that what those things are called? Astrocyte clearance. Refers to the vital role astrocytes play in maintaining brain homeostasis by actively removing excess neurotransmitters. These glial cells support central nervous system health. No, adenosine. Adenosine. That's what I'm thinking of. That's the clearance. Adenosine clearance is in the body is ultra rapid with an elimination half-life of less than 10 seconds in whole blood. It is cleared from circulation via cellular uptake. Okay, this is not referring to the same stuff, is it? In the brain, adenosine is an energy byproduct of ATP that builds up as a sleep drive the longer you are awake. And the way that you clear it, during sleep, slow wave sleep, the brain recycles this extracellular adenosine back into ATP. So this is the type of thing that even resting during the day isn't going to clear up this adenosine unless you were to do like a non-sleep deep rest, I think. Or if you were to nap during the day, that can help you out. So this might be cool because this might be like some Huberman stuff, like trying to figure out how we can improve this clearance so that you are less tired the next day. Excitatory inhibitory resonance in cognition stabilizes synaptic traces in memory. I don't know what that's going to help us out with. Criticality of consciousness, excitatory, inhibitory, balance, and dual memory systems in active inference. And we got Friston involved. We got an active inference strategy for prompting reliable responses from large language models. Adaptive consolidation of active inference, excitatory and inhibitory mechanisms for organizing feed-forward and feedback memory systems in sleep. Okay. I'm not sure where else to go there. All right, let's keep going. We've got the life book, right? Somewhere. Yeah. All right, moving on. The janitors. The janitors, yes. Absolutely. They are the brain janitors. The glial cells. We got the microglia. or microglia. Like, how are you supposed to pronounce? How to pronounce microglia? Microglia? No way, it's microglia. Or microglia. No way, it's not either microglia or microglia. Microglia? How?
You are looking at word pronunciation. Let's break it down. Microglia.
It is. Microglia. That's terrible. I've ruined the fun. No way Google said the old Mike Hawk joke. Nice. You just trolled. Is this beans? Is this beans, we say? What did I just do? Okay.
Yeah. Microglia.
Man. That's so much less fun to say. Microglia. Microg. All right, we got microglia. We're all human beings, absolutely. Okay, so then the strongest match for your culture constrains consciousness point. We've got Ramstead, Visir, that's not how to pronounce it, Kermeyer, Constant. This is a cluster I think you should take more seriously. You said you do not want a crude instrumentalism where we freely choose words because they serve ends. You want an account where language, culture, social intelligibility, attention, and prior learning constrain what becomes salient or conscious to us. That is almost exactly what Maxwell, Ramstead, we've seen Ramstead before, all these people are doing with cultural affordances. We just saw cultural affordances. Regimes of attention and active inference. Their paper, Cultural Affordances, Scaffolding with Local Worlds Through Shared Intentionality and Regimes of Attention, says its aim is to explain how cultures and context interact with human biology to shape behavior, cognition, and experience, bridging. Okay, so that's really good. That's what we want. It also says cultural worlds shape agents through shared expectations, joint attention, social norms, and pattern practices that install local ontologies. Local ontologies! Oh my gosh. What an amazing way to describe what I've been trying to describe here. Local ontologies. So when we talk about a local ontology, this is basically like a pragmatically similar knowledge base amongst a local population. So it's not like everyone has the same ontology here in this local space. It's that, roughly speaking, this type of local knowledge base emerges such that people pragmatically understand certain concepts in a similar way. Like when you go to the subreddit of your favorite game, that would be a local ontology about what things mean, right? Like, you know, you go into a subreddit of a game you don't know, and you'd be like, what the hell are they talking about? You have no idea what the language even means. There's a story where he refused to walk through a bean field when he was getting chased. What is this? Oh, okay. Pythagoras unironically thought that was beans. He refused to eat beans, right? That whole cult stuff. I know it from puppet history. He thought beans were humans or something. There's a story where he refused to walk through a bean field when he was getting chased. Like reincarnation of something. Like that's our cocoon in some sense. Like that's our intermediary period where we're beans for one life and then we become a human in another life. Or maybe beans just like maybe a bean disappears once a new baby's born. That bean was actually the baby before it was born. Stan Low Kenuanly, we got a local ontology. We do. Also, you could describe Gen. Is that Gen Z or would that be like Gen? Oh, what's the newer? What's newer than Gen Z right now? Is it just Gen X? Or was that something that came before? I don't remember. Gen Alpha. That's okay. Gen Alpha, because we're going the other way, right? Yeah, is that Gen Alpha or Gen Z slang? Are we allowed to eat beans in this cult? We are allowed to eat beans, absolutely. Beans are allowed. In fact, we might have to eat beans. I might dictate bean eating. Okay. They're thinking through other minds develops this into a variational free energy account of culture. It argues that humans learn shared habits, norms, expectations through immersive participation in cultural practices that pattern attention and behavior. So I had it correct in the beginning. Where's our there it is. I think we have one of these people here. Do we have Ramstead? No, sorry about that. This would be also in chapter 10. It would be, I guess it should be here if it was anywhere. No. But this is where we would end up putting something like that. Or am I thinking about this? The top of this. Do I have this already here? Nope, I guess not. Okay, well, this is good stuff. Can we get this guy? Awesome. 2019. What was this other one? 2016? Okay, so we got to be keeping an eye on Ramstead here. And Kermeyer. I remember Ramstead. I don't know what Ramstead was in, but I remember the name Ramstead. Maxwell J.D. Ramstead. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's going on here? There we go. Computational spirits, a neuroscientific account of psychedelic entity encounters. Yikes. 5 for Stonian formulae. Priors and proprioceptive predictions. Proprioceptive predictions being predictions about our body position or movement. So like when I make that example in the video essay where I'm talking about how like the way that our brain works is we make predictions about us going to pick up the pen, and because we're not doing what we're expecting, the brain works out and fixes those prediction errors by actually moving the arm and getting the pen. But the thing that it has to read in order to know where our arm is and whether we're getting the pen, in some sense, other than obviously looking, because I guess you could just operate off of look, worst case, but that would be a less precise movement because you'd have to go completely off of visual data. Some of that is proprioception. All right, then we got active inference and intentional behavior. What is that? What is that? Intentional behavior. Recent advances in theoretical biology suggest that key definitions of basal cognition and sentient behavior may arise as emergent properties of in vitro cell cultures and neuronal networks. Such neuronal networks reorganize activity to demonstrate structured behaviors when embodied in structured information landscapes. We characterize this kind of self-organization through the lens of the free energy principle, that is, as self-evidencing. We do this by first discussing the definitions of reactive and sentient behavior in the setting of active inference, which describes the behavior of agents that model the consequences of their actions. There it is. This is the way that we talked about free energy. I'm sorry. The way that we talked about free will, or that feeling of volition within the video essay. Like the idea of us having freedom is something that we end up modeling in a sense. Like And we could say that it's, you know, like modeled, but really we're kind of framing it in that way because from our conscious perspective, it feels as though we have a model of this thing, but it's just describing the types of patterns that occur in our brain. But we can kind of know for sure that the stuff that becomes conscious is being modeled in some sense. So the information about our own volition is important enough to become conscious. And so that's how we could think about that. All right, we then introduce a formal account of intentional behavior that describes agents as driven by a preferred endpoint or goal in latent state spaces. We then investigate these forms of behavior using simulations. Okay, we have to check this out. For sure. For sure. And then what else do we have? Nothing as exciting. Okay. And then what was the other, what was the last name here? Kermeyer? Okay. So I want to set this up so that I get an email whenever they post something, so that I'm always staying on top of these names. Dementia care research and psychosocial factors, cultural competence and psychotherapy, the place of the social in psychiatry, from structural determinants to the ecology of mind. So this is a little more clinical facing, which is less, I think, helpful for us. All right. I'll definitely follow, but I don't think I found anything there. This guy is definitely fake, who is named Ramstead. Alcohol is the dumbest thing. That's got to be a quote on X. Oh, did he actually say that? Because that's pretty funny. That's pretty based, actually. Okay. Who else do we have here? Their later... okay, we already got that. That is extremely close to your point. We are not merely choosing words as instruments. We are already enculturated into regimes of attention, salience, expectation, and possible intelligibility. This is probably the most cutting-edge scientific philosophical apparatus for the view you are describing. Okay, we'll check it out. The best social science extension. Active inference as neurobiological theory. A very recent extension is active inference and social actors towards a neurobiosocial theory of brains and bodies in their world. It explicitly tries to bring active inference into sociology, describing a model where the scene of action is the situation wherein brains enculturate, and where enculturated brains share models of the world that disclose collectively available actions. Okay. Okay. I'm intrigued. Who's doing this? Is that a name? Is this a name right here? No, this is it's Cheadle. Jacob E. Cheadle, Turner, Gooseby. You should have held your. You should have held your. This is definitely a fake person until we got to these names. Now you're gonna look like a cried wolf over here. But these are the real fake names. And what do we have going on here? Although research, including biological concepts and variables, has gained more prominence in sociology, progress assimilating the organ of experience, the brain, has been theoretically and technically challenging. Formal uptake and assimilation have thus been slow, Within psychology and neuroscience, the traditional brain, which has made brief appearances in sociological research, is a bottom-up processor in which sensory signals are passed up the neural hierarchy, where they are eventually cognitively and emotionally processed, after which actions and responses are generated. But because we are on the cutting edge in our perception video essay, we challenge that view. In this paper, we introduce the active inference framework, which casts the brain as a Bayesian inference engine that tests its top-down predictive models against bottom-up sensory error streams in its attempt to resolve uncertainty and make the world more predictable. After assembling and presenting key concepts in the active inference framework, we describe an integrated neurobiosocial model that prioritizes the micro-sociological assertion that the scene of action is the situation wherein brains enculturate. Through such social dynamics, enculturated brains share models of the world with one another, enabling collective realities that disclose the actions afforded in those times and places. We conclude by discussing this neurobiosocial model within the context of exemplar sociological research areas, including the sociology of stress and health, the sociology of emotions, and cognitive cultural sociology, all areas where the brain has received some degree of recognition and incorporation. In each case, sociological insight that does not fit naturally with the traditional brain model emerge intuitively from the predictive active inference framework model, further underscoring the interconnections and interdependencies between these areas while also providing a foundation for a probabilistic sociology. All right, so this is where we could have actually gone into these topics so much more for our chapter 10, except we really didn't need to. We kind of got it across in chapter 10, but this is like a more, obviously not granular, but a more in-depth view of all those topics that I discussed in chapter 10. Okay, so that's cool. I'm gonna have to find all these names, right? Accumulating disadvantage. Okay. Towards a model of predictive social actors. It's the same people. When was this? 2024, and then this is their update. This is a handbook of neurosociology. Okay. The immune system is complex. Active inference and social actors, that's what we just saw. Debt, stress, college stress, implications for mental health. Network approach to assembling the relationships between discrimination and daily emotion dynamics. So a lot about social issues here for Jacob E. Cheadle. We need other names here. We need Turner. K.J. Davidson Turner. Okay, so fewer releases here. And there it is. We got both of the ones we got. All right. And then we've got Bridget Gooseby. Okay. Everywhere and every day. Okay, so these are heavily like concrete social issues as opposed to broad and general brain. So I'm not sure if I'm going to find as much that would be particularly in the topic, but we'll see. The tabs. Oh, this is easy tabs. I'll clean this up later. I'll do something about this mess I've made. All right, we have to be mindful of NBA. 8:30. Okay, we got time. I'll probably go for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. All right. Where are we at here? That matters because your target is not merely philosophy of mind. It is philosophy of mind plus social theory plus language plus practical life. So if I were building your next phase, I would put this cluster near the top. All right, the habit bridge. You should also look at habits, pragmatist approaches from cognitive science, neuroscience, and social theory. Who do I support? Oh, in the game, I support them both. I'm just happy that both teams are pretty cool. Like I'm gonna be happy regardless who wins. What I support is more games. To be honest, like I was rooting for the Spurs in Game 3 because I want there to be a Game 6 in New York. I think that would be fun. Now the question is, do I want there to be a winner in New York where it would be crazy? Or do I want there to be a Game 7? And I just hope that I hope we get to a Game 6 so that I don't mind if either team wins during Game 6, because it would be fun if the team that won in New York, or if they got to Game 7 and did a Game 7, because that would be crazy. So I just want this thing to get to a Game 6. So in theory, I would hope that the Spurs win tonight. But we'll see. The Knicks are going to burn down New York City if they win or lose anyhow. It could be the case. They are putting up a lot more deterrence. Okay, what is this thing? This is a book that came out in 2020. No way you're giving me a PDF of this book right now, are you? Okay. Oh no, it's a cover. You just gave me the cover? That was a tease. 2026. Okay. I could find this book. Maybe not right now, but I could find this book. Okay, I do want to just see this this abstract. This book evaluates how the pragmatist notion of habit can influence current debates at the crossroads between philosophy, cognitive sciences, neuroscience, and social theory. It deals with the different aspects of the pragmatic turn involved in 4E cognitive science and traces back the roots of such a pragmatic turn to both classical and contemporary pragmatism. Written by renowned philosophers, cognitive scientists, neuroscientists, and social theorists, this volume fills the need for an interdisciplinary account of the role of habit. Researchers interested in the philosophy of mind, cognitive science, neuroscience, psychology, social theory, and social ontology will need this book to fully understand the pragmatist turn in current research on mind, action, society. You know, I keep tooting my own horn, but I've been on this habit wave, you know, ever since this channel even started. So I think we're on the right path here. Granted, we are kind of getting a cherry-picked selection from what I already gave, but to be fair, we only gave it my video essay, so it doesn't know anything else from the document. I'm going to burn down my apartment if the Knicks win tonight. Oh my gosh, why would you do that? Got the house on the Spurs. It's a win-win. Okay. Oh, I lost it. Oh, man. Which one was the good one here? Is it this guy? No, I think it was this guy. Yeah. All right. And what else do we have here? Okay, so these are the editors. I think this is actually going to be a book that consists of more authors, perhaps. This is not just habit in the self-help sense. It is habit as the bridge between pragmatism, automaticity, intelligent action, neuroscience, social theory, and enculturation. Right? We can think about certain thoughts as patterns. As habits, habitual patterns of brain activity. So when I think about the world in a certain way, you know, when I have a certain, it could be a conceptual thought. Like when I think about this being a pen, I can think about that as a deeply ingrained habit, such that I built up that habit over my entire life. And now it's so habitual that when I look at this pen, all the meaning that comes with pen, not all the meaning, but obviously all the meaning that I end up experiencing, emerges. The Cambridge Summary says this book examines habit from James Pierce and Dewey through behaviorism, computationalism, 4E cognition, neuroscience, and social theory, especially challenging the dualism between mechanical routine and rational action. Right. And what are you doing here? Okay, this is the same. Oh, this was the Cambridge one. Right. The volume itself is described as bringing philosophers, cognitive scientists, all that together to understand that turn. This connects directly to your anti-voluntarist point. We do not simply deliberate from nowhere. We are habituated organisms. And culture gets us into wait, what's going on here? And culture gets into us through trained perception, affective salience, bodily comportment, and socially stabilized routines. All right, so this is where we're at, you know. This is it. This is where we end up. All right, the language social normativity route, linguistic bodies. You said you have already done a lot of inactivism and 4E, so this may or may not be new, but if you have not read DiPaolo was the person that was named in... Am I going crazy? Was this not the person that was in The Brain That Changes Itself? Linguistic bodies. It is probably more relevant than yet another general inactivist text. The continuity between life and language. Oh, man. Say more. 2018. Offers a fully embodied and fully social treatment of human language without positing mental representations. The authors present the first coherent, overarching theory that connects dynamical explanations of action and perception with language. Arguing from the assumption of a deep continuity between life and mind, they show that this continuity extends to language, expanding and deepening. In active theory, they offer a constitutive account of language and the co-emergent phenomena of personhood, reflexivity, social normativity, and ideality. Language, they argue, is not something we add to a range of existing cognitive capacities, but a new way of being embodied. Each of us is a linguistic body in a community of other linguistic bodies. The book describes 3 distinct yet entangled kinds of human embodiment: organic, sensory motor, and intersubjective. It traces the emergence of linguistic sensitivities and introduces the novel concept of linguistic bodies. And it explores the implications of living as linguistic bodies in perpetual becoming, applying the concept of linguistic bodies to questions of language acquisition, parenting, autism, grammar, symbol, narrative, and gesture, and to such ethical concerns as microaggression, institutional speech, and pedagogy. Okay. MIT Press describes it basically what I just said, right? This is it, MIT Press. That is highly aligned with your interest in what communication does, how concepts are socially constrained, and how language shapes personhood and social reality. All right, the emotion slash concept slash perception route, Lisa Feldman Barrett. Not a neo-pragmatist in the historical philosophy sense, but Lisa Feldman Barrett is a very important for the exact mental category point. So which book are we looking for here? The How Emotions Are Made? Her theory of constructed emotion begins by criticizing the use of folk psychological emotion categories as if they must correspond to biological essences. She argues that emotion science has often started with folk categories such as anger, sadness, fear, and disgust, then searched for their neural fingerprints, but that this is methodologically suspect. Her constructive account treats concepts as embodied whole brain predictive structures that help the organism infer what is happening, what action to take, and what the bodily consequences will be. Beautiful. I think we're going to chill for now. I already have... Was it here? I already have her How Emotions Are Made in our list. I'm going to have to figure out what to do, how to line these up for what is actually necessary for me to read here. Okay, where Hawaii fits, since you are reading The Self-Evidencing Agent, he's relevant, but I would not treat him as the final version of the project you are describing. The Self-Evidencing Agent asks what it is to be an agent and answers in terms of self-evidencing, actively seeking sensory evidence for one's model of oneself in the world. MIT Press frames it as a philosophical account of perception, action, volition, consciousness, wisdom, meaning, and agency. That is valuable, but Hawaii is more likely to give you the agent-level predictive processing metaphysics slash epistemology. For your concern with culture, language, social constraint, and communication, you should pair him with Ramstead and all those people, which is what we have. So who's giving us what we want? Okay. The label I would use... okay. We don't need a label. All right. Am I getting summoned right now? What's happening here? Okay. All right. I think I'm chilling. Peter Gucci. That's it. Oh man, best promotion. All right, so what did I want to do next here? I wanted to tell it. Okay, this is all great. And I want to integrate a lot of these recommendations into my general reading list. However, what I want to do now is open this conversation up to what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel more broadly, which is to effectively provide a guide that leads us from these lower level grounded foundational topics and builds up some sort of pragmatic, practical way to navigate our lives, ultimately with the goal of pursuing a life that feels fulfilling. Just for some context, here is a rough outline of the topics that I think are going to be involved in the broader process, or in the broader trajectory. I understand that this is quite ambitious and that this is going to take a long time. I've been working on the part 1 content for the past couple of years because I felt like it was necessary for me to have a sufficient understanding of this foundational stuff before diving into the topics that come out of it. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to derive the right practical implications and tools from this underlying discussion. Now, after finishing this perception essay, I feel as though that I am ready for that. So even though I want to read these recommendations that you've provided, and perhaps I will read them here and there, I do actually want to touch on some of the material that is to come, or at least continue building out this rough guide or outline. And ideally, I would like this channel to be one in which we don't actually have to go in order from start to finish, as that might become a little boring, but that we could jump around from a part 1 topic to a part 3 topic, back to a part 2 topic. So my question is, how do you think I should go about strategically navigating this daunting yet / ambitious project? All right, and then we give it this guy, and then we see what it says. And it might take a while because we got the high intelligence going on here. So we shall see. Oh, so fairly quick. We might need this. I might need this. Oh, look at this. Be the person I know you can be. Oh, it would be so great if... Oh, wait, do we have to be careful about the music here? I'm not sure if we have to be careful. Oh, turn off the volume. Okay. Hey there, friend. I know you've been having some troubles lately. Be the person that I know you can be. Don't leave anything up to chance. I believe in you, pal. We all believe in you. We need a mascot for this channel. You're a winner, kiddo. Don't you ever forget. Beautiful. Let's go get the beans. This is what we're looking for. Okay. I'm not getting summoned. Probably not all night, too. Okay. All right, yes, the way to navigate this project is to stop thinking of it as a linear course and start thinking of it as a conceptual operating system with multiple entry points. Okay, let's chill out with that, but your outline already has a strong spine. Part 1 explains experiences shaped, predictive, embodied, cultural, and revisable. Part 2 turns that into practical tools for agency. Part 3 asks how that agency can be directed toward fulfillment, meaning, and moral integration. The strategic challenge is making that spine usable without forcing every viewer to start at episode 1 and proceed like a college syllabus. So the core channel promise, I would compress your whole channel into something like this. This channel helps us understand how experience, thought, emotion, identity, and agency are shaped so we can participate more skillfully in what we notice, do, believe, and become. That gives you permission to move between neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, practical reflection, and fulfillment without seeming random. Right, but there's a lot more in there, right? Like we've got all the practices that are going to actually be more concrete. Everything can then serve one of 3 functions: explain the system, create levers, or orient the life. Do not publish the project in outline order. Instead, use a spine satellites model. The spine is your canonical philosophical sequence, but the satellites are standalone videos that orbit the spine. Right. So something like why certainty feels real, why your mood changes your worldview, why concepts change what you notice. This is all stuff that we kind of already talked about, but why freedom is not absolute control, why you cannot think your way out of everything, why fulfillment is not just happiness. That's a discussion we haven't gotten to yet. Why just be disciplined is a bad model. This is all kind of part 2 topics. Why disagreement is often model conflict, why moral clarity requires humility, why identity change requires evidence, not just affirmation. Okay, this is all just gaining random bullet points from this outline. So 3 kind of videos: foundational videos, bridge videos. Every video should answer one practical question. Okay. Build a minimum viable canon. You do not need the whole project finished before publishing broadly. You need a small set of canonical videos that everything else can refer back to. That's what I was hoping with this perception video and the consciousness videos. Okay. Though these are more granular, like these are actually videos that we might want to make eventually that are relying off of the stuff we've already made. Use concept cards behind the scenes for each major concept. Create a reusable internal template. So this is a little too in the weeds here. Okay. So one thing that I would like to do is kind of decouple a lot of part 2 from part 1 so that we don't actually have to talk about some like deep stuff when we're in part 2. At least we can minimize that as much as we can. And yeah, so I wouldn't want to identify part 2 content as any sort of bridge that's actually connected to part 1. Is Jago calling you to watch the game? No, because the game isn't on yet. Because he bet 1,000. Wish I had a strong spine. Damn. Don't we all? All right, practical publishing strategy. I would not begin with the full prologue. I would begin with the video that contains the whole project in miniature. Something like that. So yeah, I would want to do that next, actually. I want to kind of make a video that talks through this trajectory of the entire project. Okay, this is just kind of saying the same thing over again. That's the one downside of ChatGPT these days. It just kind of rambles and then says the same thing twice. All right, I might give this some thought later with a fresh view and then like come up with some response that gives a more clear view of what I think the direction should be. So I might actually just call it here. We can get rid of this guy. Oh man. All right, I think I'm gonna call it. Yeah, I guess once again, check out the video essay. I'm gonna start reaching out to more people. I gotta figure out how to reach out to Ivan. Maybe just a Twitch message. I'm not sure. I'm gonna figure out what other subreddits I could post this on. But I'm gonna try to make this a little more grassroots and natural. So we'll see. We shall see. All right. Well, thanks everyone for chilling. Thanks for stopping in and providing feedback and ideas and whatnot. And thanks for any lurkers chilling about. And have a good rest of the day. See. Oh, Ivan has a blue sky. Oh, do I have to get a blue sky to message Ivan? Maybe.